Take this $1 million and get out of my son's life.
But I love Daniel.
My son will not end up with a single mother of two. Get out. Leave this house now.
They thought her 2 children made her unworthy of a billionaire. But they were wrong. Watch until the end. This story will teach you a powerful lesson. 3 months earlier, the morning began like any other in Bimbo's small apartment in Lagos. She moved quickly around the kitchen, preparing breakfast while making sure her 2 children were ready for school. The apartment was not big or luxurious, but it was clean, peaceful, and filled with the warmth of a mother who was doing everything she could for her children. "Please hurry up, you'll miss the school bus," Bimbo called out as she packed their food. At the same time, she was trying to get herself ready for work. There was barely enough time to breathe, but Bimbo was used to it. She had been doing everything alone for years. Just as she was about to leave, her little daughter looked up at her. "Mummy, when will Daddy come back?" Bimbo suddenly stopped. For a moment, the whole room became quiet. She looked at her daughter and forced a small smile, even though the question touched a wound she had tried so hard to hide. "Your daddy isn't coming back, sweetheart," she said gently. "But you have me, and I will always be here." Her daughter nodded, not fully understanding what her mother meant. But Bimbo understood. Her husband had left shortly after their daughter was born. At first, he still called and sent money, but slowly the calls became fewer and the money stopped coming. Eventually, he disappeared completely. Since then, Bimbo had raised both children by herself. She worked as an assistant manager at an upscale restaurant in Lagos. Every morning, she left home to work. Every evening, she returned to her children. It wasn't the life she had dreamed of, but for her children, Bimbo was willing to keep going. One afternoon, Bimbo attended a family gathering. Everyone was eating, talking, and laughing. For a while, Bimbo enjoyed herself. But as usual, the conversation eventually turned to marriage. One of the older relatives looked at her. "Bimbo, have you ever thought about getting married again?" Bimbo smiled politely. "I'm not against marriage." Another woman laughed. "Marriage? With 2 children?" The laughter quickly faded when everyone noticed Bimbo's expression. The woman continued, "Bimbo, be realistic. A man with money will never want to take responsibility for another man's 2 children." The room became uncomfortable. Bimbo said nothing. She simply looked down at her plate and continued eating. She had heard comments like that before. Later that evening, her close friend found her outside. "Please, don't listen to those people," her friend said. "You deserve happiness too." Bimbo smiled softly. "I know." She paused for a moment. "But I'm not going to marry someone just because I'm afraid of being alone." Her friend looked at her and smiled. Bimbo had learned something important. She wasn't desperate for a husband. She wanted love, but she also wanted respect. And she would never choose the wrong man simply because she was afraid of being alone. The next day, the upscale restaurant was busier than usual. Bimbo was working when a convoy of expensive cars pulled up outside. A well-dressed man stepped into the restaurant. His name was Daniel. He was young, successful, and one of the wealthiest businessmen in Lagos. Almost everyone in the restaurant knew who he was. The staff immediately became nervous. "That's Daniel," one of them whispered. Bimbo barely paid attention. She had heard the name, but she wasn't interested in rich or famous customers. She was simply focused on doing her job. Daniel was there for an important business dinner with his elderly mother and a few business associates. Everything was going well until suddenly, his mother placed a hand on her chest. Then she became dizzy. Before anyone could react, she collapsed.
Mama!
People
Mama,
screamed.
wake up! Somebody
Daniel
help! My mother!
immediately stood up.
Daniel, what happened?
Mom!
She just collapsed.
The restaurant
Help me!
became
We're
chaotic.
coming. Hold on.
But Bimbo
Mama,
didn't
please
panic.
breathe.
She rushed over. Please, everyone, give her some space. She knelt beside Daniel's mother and checked on her. Call for medical help immediately, she instructed one of the staff members. Then she turned to another. Bring some water, and please clear this area. Bimbo stayed beside the elderly woman while Daniel anxiously watched. For several frightening minutes, she remained calm and kept everyone organized until medical help arrived. Daniel stood there, stunned. He had never seen a restaurant employee take control of a situation like that. After his mother was taken for medical attention, Daniel approached Bimbo. "Thank you," he said. Bimbo smiled. "I'm glad she's getting help, sir." Daniel reached into his pocket and brought out some money. "Please, take this." Bimbo immediately shook her head. "No, sir." Daniel looked surprised. "Please, you helped my mother." Bimbo gently pushed his hand back. "Sir, I didn't help your mother because I wanted anything from you." Daniel stared at her. Most people would have gladly accepted the money, but Bimbo wasn't interested. She simply smiled. "Then I guess I'm not most people." She turned around and walked back to work. Daniel watched her disappear into the restaurant. For the first time in years, something had caught his attention. Not her beauty, not her job, not anything she could give him. It was her character, and Daniel couldn't stop wondering who this woman really was. After that day, Daniel started visiting the restaurant more often. At first, Bimbo thought he simply enjoyed the food, but she soon realized that wasn't the reason. Daniel was coming because of her. He enjoyed watching her work. He liked the way she treated people with respect, even when they had nothing to offer her. One evening, Daniel saw Bimbo leaving the restaurant. She had 2 school bags in one hand and several bags of groceries in the other. He walked toward her. "Let me drive you home." Bimbo smiled. "Thank you, but I'll be fine." Daniel looked at the bags. "You're carrying all that by yourself." "I'm used to it," she continued walking. Daniel didn't give up easily. After some time, he finally asked her, "Why do you keep refusing my help?" Bimbo stopped and looked at him. "Because I don't want anyone thinking I became successful because a man rescued me." Daniel smiled. "What if I don't want to rescue you?" Bimbo looked at him carefully. "Then what do you want?" Daniel answered honestly, "To know you." For the first time, Bimbo didn't know what to say. She simply smiled and walked away. But that night, she found herself thinking about his words. As time passed, Daniel slowly became part of Bimbo's life. He didn't rush things. He wanted to understand her world, including the 2 children she loved more than anything. Eventually, he met Jaden and Amara. At first, the children were careful around him, especially Jaden. One afternoon, Jaden looked directly at Daniel and asked, "Are you going to leave my mummy too?" Daniel was completely caught off guard. He slowly knelt down so they were at the same level. "No," he said. Jaden looked at him seriously. "Everybody
Jaden,
says
I
that."
promise I'll be there.
Those words stayed with Daniel. He suddenly understood that this little boy had already experienced disappointment. So Daniel decided not to make big promises. Instead, he showed up. He helped Jaden with his school project. He listened to Amara's stories. He played with them. He laughed with them. He never tried to replace their father. He simply became someone they could trust. And slowly, something beautiful happened. Daniel wasn't only falling in love with Bimbo. He was falling in love with the little family she had built. Daniel's mother eventually discovered that he was seeing Bimbo. She was furious. One evening, she confronted him. "Who is this woman?" Daniel remained calm. "Her name is Bimbo." His mother began asking questions. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why had Daniel become so serious about her? Then she discovered that Bimbo had 2 children. Her expression immediately changed. "Daniel, you are a billionaire. You could marry anyone you want." Daniel looked at her. "I don't want anyone. I want her." His mother shook her head. "She already has 2 children." Daniel frowned. "And?" His mother stared at him. "Those children aren't yours." Daniel became angry. He took a deep breath before answering. "Then perhaps you should be more concerned about the kind of man your son is becoming than the number of children the woman he loves has." His mother said nothing. For the first time, she realized that Daniel wasn't simply dating Bimbo. He was serious about her, and he was prepared to fight for the woman he loved. A few weeks later, Daniel takes Bimbo to a family event. The gathering is filled with wealthy people wearing expensive clothes and jewelry. Bimbo arrives looking elegant, but she doesn't try to compete with anyone. She simply carries herself with confidence. Daniel's cousin Victoria looks at her and smiles. Some people really know how to move up in life. Bimbo understands the insult, but she refuses to react. Later, another family member approaches her. "I heard you have 2 children." Bimbo smiles politely. "Yes." "And their father?" "He isn't involved." The woman gives her a sarcastic smile. "That must make marriage difficult." Bimbo looks at her calmly. "Only for people who believe children make their mothers less worthy of love." The room suddenly becomes quiet. Nobody knows what to say. Daniel, who has been standing nearby, heard every word. He looks at Bimbo with even greater respect. She didn't insult anyone. She simply defended her worth. Daniel's mother realizes that Daniel will not change his mind. She gives him a choice: Bimbo or the family business. Daniel is shocked, but he doesn't hesitate. "I will not leave Bimbo." His mother becomes furious. If Daniel refuses to listen to her, she decides to go directly to Bimbo. Later, she meets Bimbo privately. She places an envelope on the table. Bimbo opens it. Inside is a check for $1 million. Bimbo looks at it in disbelief. $1 million? Daniel's mother looks at her coldly. "Take it and leave my son." Bimbo stares at the check. She is shocked. "What if I refuse?" Daniel's mother leans forward. "Then you will spend the rest of your life being reminded that you were never good enough for him." Bimbo looks down at the check. For the first time, she doesn't know what to say. Bimbo takes the check. Daniel's mother believes she has won. But Bimbo has no intention of spending the money on luxury. She uses it to secure a safe home for her children. She invests part of it into the business she has always dreamed of building. And she creates a stable future for Jaden and Amara. Then she goes to see Daniel. "Daniel, your mother gave me $1 million to leave you." Daniel's heart sinks. He immediately assumes the worst. "You took it?" Bimbo nods. "Yes." Daniel looks devastated. "So you chose the money?" Bimbo shakes her head. "No." Daniel looks confused. Bimbo continues. "I accepted it because I refuse to enter your world as a woman who needs your money." Daniel is stunned. "Then why did you leave me?" Bimbo's eyes fill with tears. because I love you enough to know that I don't want to spend the rest of my life fighting your family for permission to belong. Daniel doesn't know how to respond. Bimbo walks away, and this time, Daniel lets her go. After Bimbo leaves, Daniel finally understands the truth. She never wanted his wealth. She wanted respect. He confronts his family. You thought money could make her disappear. His mother remains silent. Daniel continues. You were wrong. He walks away from the family dinner. For a while, he steps back from the family business. Then he goes after Bimbo. But Daniel knows that saying sorry isn't enough. He has to prove that he understands what Bimbo needs. When he meets Jaden, he kneels in front of him. I can't replace your father, Daniel says. Jaden looks at him carefully. Daniel continues. But if your mother allows me into your lives, I will be the man who never abandons you. Jaden doesn't answer immediately, but for the first time, he sees that Daniel isn't making empty promises. He is willing to stay. Months pass. Bimbo's business begins to grow. Slowly, the dream she once thought was impossible becomes real. She becomes financially independent. Jaden and Amara move to a better school. Bimbo finally has a comfortable home and a growing business. But despite everything, she remains humble. She doesn't suddenly become obsessed with expensive clothes or a luxurious lifestyle. She is simply happy that she can provide for her children. Daniel watches her success from a distance. He doesn't try to control her. He doesn't interfere. He simply supports her emotionally and gives her the space to build her own life. Eventually, Bimbo begins to understand something. Daniel isn't trying to own her life. He's trying to build a life with her. One evening, Daniel takes Bimbo somewhere quiet. He looks nervous. Bimbo smiles. Why are you looking at me like that? Daniel takes her hand. I have something to ask you. He gets down on one knee. Bimbo, will you marry me? Bimbo looks at the ring. Then she looks at Daniel. I will marry you, she says. Daniel smiles. But not because you're a billionaire. Daniel laughs softly. Good, because I don't want a woman who loves my money. Bimbo smiles. And I don't want a man who loves me because he thinks he saved me. Daniel looks at her. Then what are we doing? Bimbo takes his hand, choosing each other. The wedding day finally arrives. It is a beautiful celebration filled with family, friends, music, and laughter. But the emotional focus isn't Daniel's wealth. It is Bimbo. She walks down the aisle with Jaden and Amara beside her. As she approaches Daniel, she looks around. Some of the same people who once mocked her are sitting in the audience. The same people who once asked, who will marry a woman with 2 children, are now watching her marry one of the richest young men in Lagos. Daniel takes Bimbo's hands. Before they exchange their vows, he looks at her and smiles. They told me you came with 2 children. Bimbo smiles through her tears. Daniel continues. They were wrong. He looks at Jaden and Amara. You came with a family, and I was lucky enough to be invited into it. Bimbo begins to cry. Daniel gently wipes away her tears. They exchange their vows, then they finally become husband and wife. The room fills with applause. Bimbo looks at her children. Then she looks at Daniel. And for the first time, she knows that she isn't fighting to prove her worth anymore. She has found someone who already sees it. For years, people told Bimbo that having 2 children had made her less valuable. They were wrong. Her children were never the reason she was difficult to love. And Daniel didn't make Bimbo valuable by choosing her. He simply became the man wise enough to recognize the value everyone else had refused to see. Sometimes, the right person doesn't come to rescue you. They come to stand beside you. And together, you choose each other. So, what do you think about Bimbo's story? For me, one of the biggest lessons is that having children does not make a woman less worthy of love. Bimbo never allowed anyone to make her feel inferior because she was a single mother. She worked hard, built herself, and refused to settle just because she was afraid of being alone. And Daniel also showed us that true love is not supposed to be about money, status, or what someone can gain from you. It is about respect, understanding, and accepting the person's life as it is. But I want to know what you think. Do you think Bimbo made the right decision by accepting the $1 million and walking away from Daniel? If you were in her shoes, would you have done the same? And most importantly, what lesson did you learn from Bimbo's story? Let me know in the comments. I really want to hear your thoughts.